Brazil's Workers' Party's presidential candidate Lula da Silva renewed his commitment to fight corruption and improve social investment, especially for the most vulnerable sectors. In the UK, protesters gathered outside Britain's Houses of Parliament, calling for people to boycott the new energy bill. In Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine's largest nuclear power plant was disconnected from the nation's power grid for the first time in its history. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Thursday, in Brazil, Workers' Party's presidential candidate, Lula da Silva, renewed his commitment to fight corruption and improve social investment, especially for the most vulnerable sectors. Lula said they will continue to create mechanisms to investigate corruption. He recalled that during his term, they passed the law of access to information and the transparency portal to fight corruption. Speaking about the country's most pressing issues, Lula said that investing in education is key to the development of Brazil. And reconstruction work at the super oil tanks base in the western Cuban province of Matanzas continues. More than 700 tons of debris have been removed from the area where an unprecedented industrial accident happened. Government officials, headed by President Miguel Díaz-Canel, toured the facility to oversee the process. Along with the reconstruction work, they are trying to resume the normal functioning of the plant. Local authorities explained that they already have 90% of the material necessary to build the first tank on site. Meanwhile, they are reviewing other structures to decide which areas will be demolished and which ones will be preserved. Men and women are working around the clock, convinced that they will soon be able to reactivate the base, which they hope will be in better conditions than it was before. And Cuba strengthened trade and the economic ties with member countries of the Eurasian Economic Union affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Through a video conference before the Eurasian Intergovernmental Council in Kyrgyzstan, Cuban Prime Minister Manuel Marrero highlighted that cooperation in the fields of health and biotechnology is moving forward at a good pace by promoting the use of Cuban medicines. The government official described as favorable the free trade agreement to boost common exchange in issues like health and technology. Marrero highlighted the interest of 4 countries of the bloc to build an industrial park of the Eurasian Council on the island. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez arrived this Friday in Honduras, the last stop of his Latin American tour. The Spanish premier previously visited Ecuador and Colombia. Sánchez and the rest of his delegation were received by Honduran Foreign Minister Enrique Reina at Palmerola International Airport. As part of his agenda, the Spanish Prime Minister met with Honduras President Xiomara Castro to discuss issues related to providing assistance to improve consular procedures for Hondurans living in Spain and the fight against forced migration, among other topics. In Bolivia, indigenous and social organizations demonstrated in support of the administration of President Luis Arce, while rejecting the destabilizing attempts of right-wing sectors. The mobilization, called March in Defense of Democracy and the Economic Reconstruction, took place in the city of La Paz and was led by the head of state and the vice president David Choquehuanca. The call was promoted by more than 100 social organizations in rejection of the various attempts of destabilization promoted by the opposition and in support of the national government. In this context, the Bolivian president asserted that the opposition sectors are not in favor of the fact that the country is led by a popular government.
The right does not like that we are in government, that we are building the country, that we are industrializing it, that we are providing improvements for our brothers who work the land during the whole day, in the west, east, in the south, and in the north. They don't like that we are improving the quality of life, education. They don't like that we have taught them how to manage and demonstrate how to manage much health for the Bolivian people.
The Bolivian head of state denounced that the sectors of the right wing are using all tactics to provoke a new coup d'etat in the nation.
The right, brothers and sisters, when democracy is no longer of any use to them, they try the coup. They try to use the old tricks again. But the Bolivian people, as today, know those old tricks. And from here, with you, we're going to tell the right that the coup plotters will not pass, brothers and sisters.
President Arce also asserted that the people will not allow another coup d'etat to take place in the country.
And brothers and sisters, the people will not let themselves be surprised. The people know the consequences of being under a right-wing and coup government. We have suffered it, and our Gilada said it a few minutes ago. Not only imprisonment, but death for the Bolivian people, and we will never allow another coup over our dead bodies, sisters and brothers.
Colombian government suspended aerial bombings targeting armed groups in an effort to minimize the deaths of civilians and the children who have been forcibly recruited into the organizations. Defense Minister Iván Velázquez said the move was a symbol of the government's willingness to engage in future talks with armed groups. The defense minister also said that the new policy should not be mistaken for a sign of weakness on part of Gustavo Petro's administration, emphasizing that peace is a process of collective reconstruction. The decision marked a shift in the South American nation's strategy against illegal groups and drug trafficking gangs amid a recent uptick in violence, especially in remote parts of the country. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, called on the people to maintain a fighting spirit after the unjustified increase of the so-called parallel dollar in the nation. The Venezuelan president pointed out that certain sectors were trying to disrupt the economic recovery of the country, using again the parallel dollar mechanism to destabilize the national finances. Maduro called on the people not to support the prices of the parallel dollar, stressing that there is a legal and fixed foreign exchange market governed by the rates of the Central Bank of Venezuela.
There are those who want to disrupt the economic recovery and are once again bringing up the parallel dollar issue. I ask the people to keep their eyes wide open. I ask the merchants for maximum awareness. And I ask the people for a fighting spirit and not to let themselves be robbed with the parallel dollar. There is a legal market dollar. There is a dollar of Central Bank of Venezuela. It is a legal dollar and it is a market dollar. It is not a fixed dollar. They'll try to fool someone else.
And a redacted version of the affidavit used to secure the search warrant for former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago mansion was unsealed on Friday under a judge's order. The search warrant affidavit had led the U.S. Magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhart to find probable cause that evidence of crimes will be found at Mar-a-Lago ahead of the August 8th raid. The document lays out a justification for the search at the Florida mansion by the special agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. The Justice Department previously submitted its proposed redactions to the document on Thursday, prompting the judge to agree to unseal the document on Friday by noon. Reinhart stated that releasing the affidavit in whole will reveal the identities of the witnesses, law enforcement, and uncharged parties, as well as the scope and methods of the investigation. And after receiving approval almost 2 months ago, Spain Parliament approved a groundbreaking equality bill known as the Only Yes Mean Yes law. The legislation received the green light with 205 votes in favor and 141 against after passing its first reading by lawmakers in May. The new law represents a reform on the country's criminal code that now redefines rape as a sex without clear consent. Until now, rape victims needed to prove that they had been subjected to violence or intimidation. The issue was at the heart of the notorious 2016 rape of an 18-year-old woman by 5 men who called themselves the Wolf Pack. They were initially convicted on sexual abuse and not rape. That verdict led to huge nationwide protests demanding reform. In 2019, the Supreme Court overturned the verdict, convicting all 5 of rape and increasing their sentences from 9 to 15 years each. On Friday, people protested in a rise in electricity prices in the UK as households in the United Kingdom face an 80% hike in electricity and gas bills, in a dramatic worsening of the cost of living crisis before winter as the country awaits a new leader. Regulator Ofgem set its energy price cap, which sets prices for consumers who are not on the fixed deal with their supplier, will increase from October 1st to an average of more than $4,000 per year from the current $1,900 rate. Worse is expected to come in January, when Ofgem next updates its cap, which average bills predicted to top $5,000 or more. Protesters gathered outside Britain's Houses of Parliament, calling for people to join the Don't Pay It UK campaign, which is encouraging people to refuse to pay their energy bills from October 1st. And Telesur will dedicate its coverage of the Football World Cup Qatar 2022 to the figure of Diego Armando Maradona, who accompanied our crew in the last 2 World Cups. With the football star, we also toured our continent with the show The Zurda Viajero. We want this tribute to have its own music. With that in mind, we invite you to write or compose a song for Telesur's coverage of the World Cup Qatar 2022. It must be an original song, never recorded before or published in any media, and free of legal attachments. Record the song in any format, WAV, MP3, even with your cell phone, and send it as an attachment to comunicaciones at telesurtv.net with the following information: author's name, nationality, and the name of the song. The closing date of the call for entries is September 10th, 2022. A jury of prestigious musicians and composers from the region will select the winning piece. The prize will be the recording of the song, a video clip, and the wide diffusion of the work. 1 week after the closing of the call, Telesur will announce the results. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Ukraine's largest nuclear power plant was disconnected from the nation's power grid for the first time in its history. Russian Defense Ministry said that Ukrainian armed forces continue to shell the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and the city of Enerhodar, where the plant is located. The ministry also stated that the continuous shelling of the critical infrastructure of the nuclear power plant damaged 3 of the 4 high-voltage lines connecting the nuclear facility to the national grid and undermined its safety, which could lead to a major nuclear disaster. Chief spokesperson Igor Knyazenkov also said that the Ukrainian military continued shelling of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant from positions located on the opposite bank of the Kharkova reservoir.
The Ukrainian military continues the shelling of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant and the town of Enerhodar. Over the past day, Ukrainian artillery targeted the nuclear power plant area 7 times from large caliber cannons. The shelling was conducted from the Ukrainian military firing positions in the area of Nikopol, Marganets, Vyshetalasovka, Chervonogrigorovka, located on the opposite bank of the Kakhovka Reservoir. The enemy's fire units were suppressed by return fire by the Russian Armed Forces artillery.
The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Thursday that Russia is committed to working on reconciliation in Syria.
Lately, some of our Western colleagues have been spreading information that under the conditions of conducting the special military operation in Ukraine, Russia has lost interest for Syrian reconciliation. Those statements are totally improper. They do not reflect our course of striving for all-encompassing Syrian reconciliation, including supporting your mission.
Fighting erupted between government forces and members of the Tigray People's Liberation Front in northern Ethiopia, shattering a 5-month truce and dealing a blow to peace efforts. Both sides have repeatedly blamed the other for a lack of progress towards negotiations to end the 21-month conflict in Africa's second most populous nation. The Tigray People's Liberation Front said government forces and their allies had launched a large-scale offensive towards southern Tigray. The government accused the TPLF of striking first, stating that Ethiopia's Air Force shot down a plane carrying weapons for the TPLF that had entered the country's airspace via Sudan. The March truce paused fighting in a war that began in November 2020 and allowed the resumption of international aid to Tigray. Now we move on to other topics. Supporters of the Just Stop Oil environmental activist movement damaged petrol pumps in London with hammers and glued themselves to the ground to protest against new oil and gas licenses being issued in the United Kingdom.
Terrified about the climate and ecological emergency. I have my future ahead of me, and I don't know what that future is going to be like.
I am desperately worried about the climate crisis and the lack of urgent action, but particularly I am really worried about the new gas and oil licenses that are going to get consent in October.
We need an emergency response from the government. We will stop doing these actions once we have a statement from the government that's meaningful.
On Friday, Pakistan's government declared an emergency state due to the monsoon flooding it said had affected more than 30 million people. The National Disaster Management Authority said that more than 900 people had been killed this year, including 34 in the last 24 hours as a result of the monsoon rains that began in June. Officials said this year's floods are comparable to 2010, the worst on record, when over 2,000 people died and nearly a fifth of the country was underwater. The annual monsoon is essential for irrigating crops and replenishing lakes and dams across the Indian subcontinent, but each year it also brings a wave of destruction. A statement from the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's office said 33 million people had been badly affected by the flooding, while the country's disaster agency said nearly 220,000 homes were destroyed and 500,000 more badly damaged. In China, Typhoon Maon made landfall on Thursday in the southern province of Guangdong with winds of 118 kilometers per hour. This is the 9th event of this type so far this year that is causing strong storms, winds and rainfall, as well as flooding of main roads, leaving some 140 people in temporary shelters. A local weather station reported waves of up to 5 meters high, forcing authorities to call some 300 fishing boats to port as preventive measure. The effects of Maon's path were severe in the Han Khan administrative region, where commercial and financial activity was partially suspended. 6 counties in Hainan province are expected to record rainfall of more than 100 millimeters in the next 24 hours. And the provincial authorities in China have continued to take effective drought relief measures, including improving irrigation systems and conducting cloud seeding to ensure safe drinking water and the irrigation for autumn grain crops. Since the drought began in July 20th, authorities have discharged nearly 280 million cubic meters to water to the country's largest irrigation area in Sichuan in an effort to ensure autumn rice production. To alleviate the local drought, the Sichuan Meteorological Administration deployed 2 large unmanned aerial vehicles to conduct cloud seeding operations. Telesur English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on the screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon, further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now, more than ever, the world connects to us, and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And now you can also follow us on TikTok account at Telesur English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.